Hey everyone, welcome to this Museum Minute. Darrell and I are here in Los Alamos, New Mexico at the New Mexico Association of Museums Conference. And Darrell's got a story for you this week.
It really, Aaron's an incredible story of connections. We're in Los Alamos for the conference, and it's just an amazing opportunity to think back on your life. The Pierce Museums in Corsicana, Texas, were the brainchild and founded by Charles and Peggy Pierce.
Right.
And I met them back in the early 90s and helped them collect over 20,000 Civil War documents, letters, manuscripts, and 500 works of art. And
Right.
the two museums that we built for the Pierce Museums are a legacy to Charles Pierce and Peggy Pierce. And they're great museums today available for the public to walk into. While I was working with Chuck and Peggy over all those years, one of the places that he talked about a lot was the Los Alamos Boys Ranch, or Boys School, the ranch school. And I had never had a chance really to get to know why that was so important to him. And this week we've been up here at this conference, and I'm walking down one of the halls here at Fuller Hall, and there's photographs on the wall of all the class schools from the 30s. This thing was started in 1917, and as an elite private boys school. One of the things that they talked about was health and wellness, and they did Latin in the mornings and all those things, and then went out into the woods. 1943, the government swoops in, starts the Manhattan Project, and that was basically the end of the Los Alamos Ranch School. But Chuck was here from 1936 to 1939, the 4 classes there. And I'm walking down a hallway, and there's a group photo on this porch here at Fuller Hall. And I look on the first class, 1936, and there's Charles Pierce. 37, there's another year older, Charles Pierce. And there's 4 years of photographs of my mentor and friend and a man that I loved, taken from the late 1930s.
Wow.
Now, right after he left here, of course, World War II broke out. He joined the World War effort,
Right.
and then went on to be a businessman and a philanthropist and all of that. But he talked about this place as being one of those formative events in his life. And it's been really kind of interesting to walk in the same spaces that he's walking in.
Yeah, you're standing right
And
where
I'm
he
standing.
stood.
I'm standing next to a post here where, in the photograph, he's standing.
Yeah,
That was 80 years ago.
yeah.
80 years ago, 1930s. He's standing here. His life is all in front of him. Mine hasn't even begun.
Right.
And here we are, 80 years later, and I'm at the end of my career. And
Don't say that. I don't want that to happen.
And I worked with a man who, he didn't know he was going to do that
Right.
those years. And our connections through history.
Well, and what's crazy to me is he came from Chicago, Illinois, right? Or from Illinois.
In your hometown.
My hometown. And Darrell's from Corsicana, Texas. And they both came here for some reason.
And we've been standing all week here on the grounds where Robert Oppenheimer talked
Yeah.
about the atomic bomb. And,
the test bomb was put together right over
there. I mean, not feet from where we are. And
Yeah.
this was the Fuller Lodge was confiscated by the government to help build the Manhattan Project. This was all grown up. So all week long we've been seeing the buildings and the history. And I have a special connection to that history through Charles and Peggy Pierce. And he stood on this very spot almost 80 years ago, or over 80 years ago, and was in his formative years before I was even thought of.
Yeah.
And so it's just a great connection all the way around.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you ever get a chance, you should go to Corsicana, go to the Pierce Museums, see their wonderful collection put together by Charles and Peggy Pierce. I was the first director of that museum, the start of my career,
Yep.
now coming up on 25 plus years ago. And so, to be in a place where he stood and looking out over the hills that he looked at, I mean, I don't know if he would know it today because of all the growth, but at least the historical building is still here, and the pictures are there.
Yeah.
And it was kind of spooky, one of those hair on the back of your necks kind of things that stood out, because history is important, and I have a history to this place and a connection to this place that I didn't really realize until I saw those photographs.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun.
It's been awesome. Definitely recommend coming to Los Alamos, learning about the Manhattan Project, learning about the ranch school. It's a nice little town.
And that's been this week's Museum Minute.
That is. Thanks for joining us.